can actually, or what I think is most important about how you are going to onboard SAP PO developers, what's important in that process and stuff like that. So yeah, thanks for joining. Let me just switch back. So yes, if you're listening to this live, just drop a comment. I really appreciate you. I guess what I wanted to cover is some of these things about how you actually are onboarding your CPI developers, or for that matters, it doesn't really matter that much how you're onboarding any type of developers to your team. It can be PI, CPI, API management developers. I think in most cases, all of these need to get the same ideas about what's going on. Let me just hear here a second. What? Cool. So yes, great. Someone is joined the call. Great to have you here. So let's get started. So why is the onboarding process important? You can always say, once you start as a consultant on a new project, there's a lot of things you need to understand about that specific client, what they're doing, how to deal with certain kind of things, and you need to find a way to speed up that process. So consultants get much better, much faster, and can really deliver something on the project. A lot of times when I've been on clients, it has taken a long time before people were actually, or I had my own use I could do stuff with, and then a lot of times I'd actually used some other users their user to get on board. That's not really optimal, but hey, I guess that's what it was. So it's about getting developers productive along the way. So if you're here, then just how have you been onboarded recently? Does anyone really have like a good process about how you're onboarding? Please share if you have experienced this really good or bad onboarding experience. So I think one of the things that's important is this understanding what your company does, why it's important for them, what they're doing, and like the leader in this specific area or the top 5 in some kind of area. It's important for me to know when I'm starting on a project, and in that way I hopefully can deliver some value to them and give us a mission, what you're doing and stuff like that. Hello, Imran. And another important thing is, so one of the things I would like to know is how you're developing integration. So why is integration important in the company, how you're testing and governance, and all of these things I think we'll cover in a little more details along the way. If you're watching this, just hit the like or subscribe button depending on where you are. I would really love to see that. So one of the things I also like to know is what kind of a system landscape that you have. And I think a lot of all of these things is something that I would learn after a couple of weeks when I've been on it. Oh, by the way, we have this CRM system, or we have an ERP system that's used in some specific region, and that would be really nice to learn. So getting to understand what an overview of it. So if you have 250 SAP systems, I just want to know that there's a lot of systems, and what are the key ones that is interesting. Obviously, what's the integration landscapes, and for some companies, I know that they have like a project repository where they're doing all the project development. What's that string called, and how do you get data back into the main development branch and stuff like that? So all of those things is pretty important. Something like S4 or plan changes when are you going to go on S4. I guess it's not really a question of when, but it's a question of when, not if. And then if you're going to use CPI Suite, or what's your roadmap for these things, because I guess that can also give us a little more idea about what's really going to happen. So yeah, if you think I missed something, please just add it into the comments. I'd love to see. Obviously, these are some of my ideas about how things could be improved, but I'm sure you got tons and tons of ideas on also what can be improved. So just put some of these into the questions, and I'll share these slides later. If I can figure it out in a good way, but let's see. Probably on my LinkedIn account. One of the things I've also like to see is naming conventions. When I started out in PI, I think we spent a lot of time considering all of these cases and drawing on blackboards about how do we make these processes the best way and make sure that they were reusable and everybody could handle them. I don't know if you have seen the same thing going on. But obviously, it's important to have a good naming convention that is a tailor to your company, that makes sure it works pretty. So there's a lot of different cases that point into this. So this could be pre or post fixes to objects. Do you use C for all your own development? I've seen a lot of places where they're using like a number on ID for the specific integration, so it's a lot easier to find the integration. And then obviously, how do you name all the integration, what's important, and how to consider these things. If anything missed, just put it into the chat. I would appreciate that. But yeah, you could obviously go a lot deeper into what a naming convention could be and who can use it. I think another thing that's important is what kind of patterns do you have, and if you have been doing something similar as you expect the consultants to be doing, say, hey, we already created this object in this previous time. Maybe this will be a good way to consider. Or maybe just have a link, say, these are some of the best integrations we think that are following our procedures, that are handling these different things. And then obviously, this will not really work all the time. So you need to understand, how do you make an exception on these things? So it's about you understanding what's going on and how you can improve these processes along the way. So let's go back. One of the other things I often miss is error handling. And this is about understanding how you're dealing with errors, because it's seldom I've created integration that did not really fail. So it's about finding a good way where you can say, okay, these are the things that are failing. This is how we can go about creating this, and if it fails, this is how we're doing it. What are the different support levels? Do we have a team dedicated or in a different company that needs to work with these things? And then obviously, yeah, what's the current view of working with these things? And if you need to create specific documentation on how to monitor these things, obviously you need to get that involved on. So I think a lot of these is things that I'll learn as a consultant on a project, but the sooner I get your view on it and that I not need to go through some elaborate process about figuring out how to deal with these things, the better. And yeah, so release procedures, working with tickets, all these kind of interesting stuff is also pretty important, because once I've delivered my integration that follows all your naming conventions on all these different things, I would love to know how I'm getting this stuff into production. What step is important, or is I'm required to do, and what steps would someone else do as a part of this? And please give some background on it. I'd say that the best tool out there is probably the Figaf DevOps tool that allow you to actually understand this and figure out how to deliver integration in a much more seamless way. Another point is what kind of documentation is required. We talked about some error handling documentation. You have functional, technical documentation. And in my view, if you're just going to do some technical documentation that is not really adding value, that's just copy-paste, probably do not waste time on those things. Get it automated. Obviously, functional specifications, something like that, really makes a lot of sense. And also if you're offshoring or figure out who is going to develop these things, then you need to figure out some of these things. I think test cases is also one of the next one. How do you actually create test cases, and how do I get sign off of these papers? And obviously, a lot of this depends on the size of the organization. Are you just one guy with 2 PI developers that work from time to time on your projects? Or do you have like a continuous flow of CPI or PI developers coming into the projects? Then it's obviously going to be 2 different processes about what you're able to achieve. Tests is also an important part of this. How do we test? Who is responsible for testing, managing, and running some of these different things? And the more you know of how these things are going on, the better. And if you have frameworks in place that will allow you to create this unit test, if you have, for instance, Groovy scripts that you want to run, that you can actually run locally and people can see how these are working. And then obviously also who's responsible for what kind of tests and how's that going to deal with this. Any other questions, comments, just put them into the chat. This is why this is a live session. So I really appreciate you taking your time to be here and watching this. So yeah, if any questions, comments, just put them into the chat. And then obviously I would like to know who is responsible for what kind of tests you have in place. I would also like a view of what are the different systems involved in this. What's the dev, queue, production, maintenance, or whatever type of projects you have. Obviously, which Figaf version you're using. If you're using any Git repositories, ticketing system like Jira, VPN, or PI systems, all of these different things, really the more you can say, this is our standard way of delivering content, please work in this way. And then give users, these are the options you need. Citrix URLs, all these kind of things that people need to get started. With development documentations, I think later on I will share, I think one of the best guides for creating these. I have, I think maybe it's not this one. I'll share a little later some of the different ideas that you have here. So obviously one of the things is that you'll say, okay, this is expensive, and especially if you need to get consultants to deliver this, then you'll have to pay for training on getting them started. But as I see it, what kind of alternative do you actually have? It's like, okay, just give them the keys to to the company or to the system. Let them play around and see if they can follow some good practices and figure out how to deal with things the way you want it. Or you can give them and you would obviously get some kind of a mess because everybody will do it in their own way. In PI world, it was fairly strict or simple to do these things. In CPI world, not so much. I guess if you just let people loose, they will create all different kind of things that no one really knows what is going on. So it's just be a mess and a lot of inconsistencies. And I think this is probably the link that I think has the best copy link address. Let me just put it into here. So this is okay. So I cannot post in LinkedIn. Okay, strange. Oh well. But yeah, the idea here is you need someone that, if you have not been doing the CPI development for a long time and have a lot of experience in how you want things, what's best for you, I think it makes sense for you to get a consultancy that have done a number of projects and probably will not be and have some experienced consultants that can go and do a workshop with you and say, okay, these are the things that's important for you. Tailor presentations on this, so people can get started a lot easier. And then obviously it needs to be aligned with your current development strategy. Are you going to be a CPI customers and then CPI suite? Then make sure that all of this follows those procedures, so it's a lot easier to manage in that way. As I said here, I think the best document on this is probably this comprehensive guide. I think it gives a lot of different ideas about what you need to consider. It's probably not going to be that approach you're choosing, but at least it will cover a lot more details about all the different questions and comments that you need to have in the process. And then obviously, I really recommend getting a good tool that can allow you to manage the development process, so you can deliver your SAP integration a lot easier. And if you're going through a process like this about figuring out how you can actually deliver your CPI integration better, go through all the different steps and figure out which one is not really adding value in the amount or what it would cost, and go through with the business and say, okay, we have this step. Is there any way we can simplify or deliver it in an easier way? So we will still get the reward, but not with all the cost involved in this. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you're watching and have any questions, comments, just put them into the chat. Also be sure to hit the like or subscribe button, depending on which platform you are. And obviously, this is not really going to be a fixed document. So once you've done the presentation, go through with the developers consultant, say, what did you like? What do you think we can add to improve this? And then you'd end up with 1 to 2 hour presentation that covers your full landscape. And then you can actually just give this recording to the next developers that comes on to the project, and then they know all of your procedures. And I think that's an important part of it. Oh. As I mentioned some of the times before, obviously I always recommend the Figaf DevOps tools. It gives you a way to simplify your SAP CPI and PI development. You have a Git repository, a standard Git repository that allows developers to actually develop instead of just having to figure out how you're dealing with this. It has automated testing, unit tests in the Git repository, change management tool, so you can actually track all the things that's being changed. It got transport tool. It can create configuration of all the changes you have, and then it can also do all the documentation that you need. Oh, and support. I guess that's also an important part of this. And I think in the normal world, a lot of the CPI developers would also or PI developers will also be doing some support from time to time. And the more you can improve in that way, the better. So that was what I wanted to cover in this presentation. Obviously, there's a free trial of the Figaf DevOps tool. You can go try that out. But if you have any questions, comments, please put them into the comments. I would be glad to answer all your questions. But the idea I wanted to convey with you today was this: it is actually important for you to have a good process in place when you're onboarding developers. You can obviously just say, hey, it's okay. They are much better at these things than we are. But the more different ideas you have, the more challenges it's gonna be. So please do consider creating a good onboarding experience for your consultants, because it will save you quite a lot of time on the process. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, just put them into the chat and I'll be happy to answer some of these. And if you like the sessions once more like this, also, yeah, hit like, subscribe. I really do look forward to see you some other time on the platform. And thanks for joining. And yeah, obviously this is something I'm a little passionate about. Yeah, because most of the times it's not really the best practices that I've seen. Yeah, and obviously getting this process in place is good, but also the part about how do you actually make sure that developers get access to the systems fast without them having to go around and find employees and use their users for a period of time is not really sustainable in today's world. Yes, thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, comment, and subscribing. I really appreciate all your comments and feedback. So thanks for now.